Hey, be encouraged, good people. In leadership, we're trained to chase the high notes of success. We build lives that look invincible, but the real transformation doesn't happen in the applause. It happens in the silence. Between the notes. I'm Craig Emmanuel Pratt, and this podcast is for the high capacity leader navigating the complex collection of life's challenges. Whether you're facing a career pivot, a personal crisis, or the weight of an invisible struggle, this is your space to exhale. We're bridging the gap between executive authority and spiritual restoration, moving your past from a residence where you're stuck to a reference point for your future. It's time to stop living on life support and start leading with a restored voice. So pull up a chair. Let's find the truth here between the notes. Welcome, my friends. We all chase the high notes, the wins that get the praise, but we find our true identity in the quiet, lonely days. When your worth is not your work and the performance fades from view, that's where you'll find your restored voice, a strength that feels brand new. This is life between the notes. I'm so proud and happy to be here for another episode. And today, I want to talk about the authority of your scars. The authority of your scars. And I spent years terrified that if people knew the truth about what I was struggling with, even though I was a corporate leader, behind the scenes, if people knew about my debt, my addictions, or my struggles, that they would stop listening to me. As a leader, we chase those high notes, and we always try to pretend that we have it all together because we have so many people dependent upon us. But we never think about the fact that we're human and the vulnerability of the things that we experience in life, the low points. Sometimes we feel like people won't listen to us, or we'll lose our sphere of influence if we show our vulnerability. I thought that my authority was tied to perfection. And I wonder if there are any listeners out there that are leading at a high level and you think that your authority is tied to your perfection. Today, I want to talk about why that fear was the biggest lie I ever believed. Sometimes in life, inevitably, we're going to experience challenges, low points. And I believe that it's very important for us to, as leaders, be able to be transparent and understand that whatever gifting and talent or realm of influence that we have is not directly connected to who we are. Because ultimately, if you cut any one of us any way, shape, or form, we bleed the color red. It doesn't matter your ethnicity, your background, your gender. We're all human and we all experience the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the victories, the defeats, the wins, and the losses in this journey of life. But the authority of your scars, I believe, gives you even more relevance when it comes to leadership. Because nobody really wants to hear from someone that doesn't have experience, right? If you come to someone for a particular reason or a problem that you may be having, you want that individual to be an authority figure, to have experience so that they can help you fix your problem. For example, if you have a problem with your vehicle, your car, and you, the engine light comes on, you wouldn't take it and drive it to Chuck E. Cheese. You wouldn't drive into Chuck E. Cheese and ask Chucky, "Hey, can you fix my car?" Now that sounds, hysterically far-fetched. Of course, that's ridiculous. But oftentimes, that's what we do with our problems. Sometimes we're going to the wrong resource trying to be fixed. And it's just like having a car problem and pulling up to Chuck E. Cheese for a resolution. Only the manufacturer or the one that he created that problem, that product, will be able to help you fix it properly. And so, to my point, when you are able to be vulnerable as a leader, it makes you that much more of an authority figure, and that's much more relatable. Um, and so you think about it as executives and as corporate leaders or whatever leadership position you may be holding as a listener. Um, when you when you are hiring a new person to onboard in your HR department, or if you're hiring a new employee, one of the first things you want to know is, do you have experience? One of the first questions on the application or your resume, when you present a resume, it's your experience. And oftentimes we want to highlight the good things. And we want to, say what school we went to and, what jobs we have and how much money we've earned. But when it comes to being relatable and being an executive that is a true leader, we have to lead with the heart of vulnerability and relatability. And so that was the fear that I had for a long period of time, which caused me, to spiral into a certain level of depression when that level of performance wasn't being achieved as it normally was prior to my the downsizing of my business. And so the authority of your scars, because when you ask someone what experience they have, you want to understand that they've been through enough and they've been through and experienced enough and they're seasoned in that particular subject matter or particular issue so that they can be an asset to your organization. So in life in general, we don't really want to hear from somebody that hasn't had the experience to be able to help. You don't go to a dentist and this is their first day. They haven't gone through to any type of dental school or whatever, and they just open up a dental office, but they have no experience. So you see the point I'm trying to make is experience qualifies you to be an authority. But oftentimes as leaders, we don't want to reveal the scars. We don't want to reveal the defeats that we've experienced. We want to pretend that it's all perfect. And that's not relevant and it's not real. I believe the true characteristic of a true leader is that you're able to lead while you bleed. You're able to bleed, to lead while still having some wounds and the wounds and ills of life that are inevitable. Um, and those of you that are listening that are high achievers and are leaders and, are still compelled and called to lead an organization or to teach in the educational field or whatever realm of influence you have, we have to show up and we have to compartmentalize. In my educational field and as a program manager and principal of Grace Place School now, um, I deal with students that have tremendous trauma, tremendous situations, even at a young age that is heavenly, profoundly um, tough to deal with. And so I have to show up and I have to be that source of strength and leadership. Now, not to say that a lot of times the students don't realize that as a human man, human as a man, I've got a lot of things I'm dealing with in my own personal affairs. But when we're called to lead, that's why I use the term we lead while we bleed. When I pull up in the parking lot and step into the office and to the school campus, I have to compartmentalize and not allow what I'm dealing with to, override or to flow into my performance on the job because people are depending upon us. And students have experienced enough trauma, they may not necessarily need to hear my trauma. Now, that does not mean that my trauma is not real, it's not relevant, and it is still something that has to be dealt with and has to be, you know, talked about. But that's why I created this platform and just we'll be having guests and different resources as we progress so that we can show the vulnerability of the high notes and the low notes, but it's what happens between the notes that builds our character. And that's how we're able to influence the next generation of students because they want to know that, Mr. Craig, you have experience. I may not have gone through exactly what they've gone through, but they haven't gone through what I've gone through. And so as a listener, I'm not sure exactly what you may be dealing with now or what you have dealt with, but what's happening between those notes. There's a famous saying that when God closes one door, he opens another one. But what happens in the hallway between the notes? And so one of the keys to, I believe, going to the next level of victory or the next level of accomplishment is acknowledging a scar. We all have scars, and sometimes we're ashamed of the scar. But scars only actually indicate victory. That yes, you were cut, you were damaged at one point, but you healed and you survived. And so the scars sometimes indicate survival and victory. Sometimes we're ashamed of the scars because it's damaging to our outward appearance, and it deals with some sort of source of pride in our lives that we don't look the same that we used to, and this situation cut me. But it gives you the organic authority and relevance to say, hey, I went through this, but I made it, I survived, and I've got the scars to show. My faith in Christ is first and foremost in my life. And we think about when Jesus, when he appeared to the disciples after the resurrection, he didn't withhold his scars. He actually held them out to show. He led through his scars to say that, yeah, the cross, I endured the cross, but ultimately I claimed victory over the cross, and I've got the scars to show. Because again, to my point, what is your experience? What is your history? Thomas, one of the disciples, literally asked Jesus, what's your experience? Did you really? He doubted. And so Jesus was able to use the scars as tangible evidence that I've been through, but I've overcome. And so for any listener out there, don't be afraid to show your scars, because your scars give you authority. And that's what I wanted to highlight today in this episode, the authority of your scars. Your scars give you relevance. It says, hey, yeah, man, you went through that battle, you went through that fight, but you survived. I was just having a conversation, and it just kind of tied into to this conversation just now. Right before the episode, I was talking about the real deal Evander Holyfield, a famous boxer. He was a world champion boxer, and I ran into him not long ago at a BJ's wholesale warehouse. And he was very nice. He was actually in front of the store, and he was loading up his groceries, his packages into the back of his truck, and one of the items fell down, and I actually was able to help him pick it up, and I was in awe. I was, because I'm a fan of Evander and boxing, and as I was helping him pick up his item, I looked at his ear. And the famous ear that we all know about, that famous fight when Mike Tyson took a chunk out of the ear. And it was amazing to see. I beheld it. I was able to see that ear up close and personal, and sure enough, there was a nice chunk missing. And Evander was very hospitable, very nice about it. We laughed. I said, "Man, that's the ear that the Mike Tyson bit." And he was like, "Yeah. I want to fight him again." It was funny, but he was very, very kind. And I didn't even plan on mentioning that, but when I was talking about the authority of scars, it kind of just tied into what I was, the topic that I'm discussing today, is that by that scar, it brought us back to remembering that Evander endured that, but he went on to win the fight. Tyson was disqualified, and he went on to win that fight. But he had the scar to show. And I think it's just metaphorically, that's just an analogy or an example of what you may have in life. You may have gone through a divorce. You may have gone through a downsizing of a business. You've gone through a health crisis, and you have the authority to speak about and encourage others that, hey, you can make it. There's a video that I want to share now, which literally will describe what I was experiencing prior to my health crisis in the hospital.
I'm gonna fight for my life, man. Pray for
me. Wow. So if you couldn't understand, I was saying, I'm in a fight for my life. Please pray for me. to describe that, I actually was admitted to the I was rushed to the hospital. I almost passed out at the house. I was rushed to the hospital, and my wife was unable to come into the hospital with me. The protocol at that time wouldn't allow for visitors, so they rushed me into that room. The doctor came in and literally told me that it was life or death. It was very serious, and he gave me a litany of things that they were going to do to try to preserve my life. Um, so I was in that room alone, and they started pumping me with the oxygen. And something came over me and told me to grab my phone because I honestly didn't know that if I was going to make it. And I wanted to send possibly a last message to my family. And so I got my phone and I recorded that message because I was unable to have any visitors. I sent that out as a text message to all my family and just say, pray for me because I'm, I'm in a fight for my life. And shortly after that, I slipped into a coma and was on life support, ventilator, flatlined 3 times, but God. And so that is profoundly overwhelming at times to think about. But when I look at that video, I'm looking at what I'm telling you to, the authority of restoration, the authority of your scars. That was a traumatic experience, but now here I am able to speak to you and encourage the listener that no situation is a flat line, that if there's a pulse, there's a plan. And now we move from life support to supporting life. Again, this platform is for the high achieving leader that, we bridge the gap between executive authority and spiritual restoration, moving your past from a residence where you were stuck to a reference point for your future. So my listeners, it's time to stop living on life support and start leading with a restored voice. And this is what happens between the notes. So between the notes of me coming through that health crisis, I had to be restored mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And it was a process, but it now gives me the authority to speak to whoever may be listening and encourage you that you may be on life support now, metaphorically. Is the marriage on life support? Is your job on life support? Is your health situation? You got a situation where it seems insurmountable. But I'm a living, breathing testimony that there's help. There's hope for restoration. And restoration and resilience is not just a word. It's actually a structure. See, resilience, that word is key because a lot of times we just use it as the energy to survive, but it's a structure and it's a planned process, because resilience is not just pushing through and becoming the person that you were. Resilience is about bridging the gap and mustering enough energy and effort to become a better person, to go to the next level. And what happens between the notes of the struggle and the victory is what determines whether we will survive and get to the next level. Just like in the music, in any song, the concept of between the notes is we enjoy the music, we enjoy the lyrics, but sometimes it's in the pauses, it's in between the notes that gives us the melody, that gives us the influence and the wherewithal to really appreciate the song. And in your song of life, what is the soundtrack of your life? What's happening with the highs and the lows of your song between the notes? The good book, the word of the Lord says, let everything that hath breath praise the Lord. And with every inhale and with every exhale, we're literally breathing in and breathing out life. And in those times where we take those breaths, what are we going to do as we breathe, as we inhale and exhale through the vicissitudes of life and the different things that we deal with? How we breathe and how we obtain the energy to move forward is very key. Breathing, again, is one of the most, if not the most profound things that we do because it's voluntary and involuntary. There are times when we hold our breath and times when we kind of catch our breath and we don't understand or really sometimes focus on how significant the ability to breathe really is. And so when I was on that life support, depending upon that machine, I had to depend upon a machine to help me breathe. And sometimes we in life are dependent upon external things to help us survive until we can breathe again on our own. And I hope that this platform, I endeavor that this podcast and other resources that we provide will be a source of support for your life as you regain your ability to breathe again in your capacity of whatever you're struggling with. And so it's amazing how things come together because I literally wrote a song. My background is in music, and I literally wrote a song called I Came to Tell You uh, approximately 25 years ago. And it was talking about needing a medical miracle. I was inspired to write it because of some things that my father was experiencing, and my uncle at that time had gotten some heavy medical evaluations, and it didn't look good. And so my faith in the Lord and upon the biblical principles that I was raised upon and believe, I believe that whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. But the benefits of a relationship with the Lord is that he is a healer. And so I wrote the song called I Came to Tell You that no matter what you're going through, if we trust in his word, God will answer prayer. And not knowing that 25 years later, I would have the health crisis that I did have. And so there's a picture of the CD that I have. I wrote that. That's me, a little young whippersnapper, young buck. It's available and will be available on all streaming platforms. You can go to Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever music is streamed. I encourage you to please download, play it. We have more music coming as well, but it talks about I Came to Tell You. And the opening line is, don't believe what the doctor said. It's not over. Never mind your test results. They're not true. It's not time to toss the towel. Though it's hard to see right now, your help is coming. I said your help is coming. And it just talks about that sometimes we get an evil report from the doctor. We get a bad situation and it seems terminal or insurmountable. But if we trust in the Lord, call upon him, he will answer. And I came to tell you. And I had to come and tell myself. I had to really literally live out those lyrics. 20 plus years later, I had to listen to my own song. And I had to encourage my soul. And I'm here to encourage you, to tell you, don't believe what the doctor said. Don't believe what the negative, what the adversary is telling you about your career or your family member or the wayward lost child or the relationship or the finances, whatever it is. We have a most high God that he's concerned about our every affair. And I'm a witness that between those notes, I had to encourage myself and listen to my own lyrics. But ultimately, my lyrics reflected the word of the Lord that says no matter what we're going through, that if he is for us, who can be against us? If God is for you, who can be against you? So if the Most High God didn't hide his scars, as I close, why are we trying to hide ours? When Christ appeared to the disciples, he held out his scars as living proof that he had overcome death, hell, and the grave. So when you reveal your scars, the authority of your scars give you relevance and victory. Your scars are not disqualifications. They are credentials. They prove you have been tested and you have remained. So as leaders, to all my corporate leaders out there that are listening or educators, and just listeners in general, if you have children, you're a leader. Parents, if you're in students that are listening in high school, you're called to be a leader, not a follower. Um, and your scars give you the qualifications and the credential. And so I just wanted to take this episode to encourage that the vulnerability of your scars give you the authority. And we don't have to lead with perfection. And matter of fact, I don't think many people want a leader that's fake, right? You don't want a boss that smiles in your face and then pretends to be something that they're not. Oftentimes, we respect at a much more higher capacity someone that leads while they bleed. You know their vulnerabilities, but at the same time, they show up committed to the call and they perform at the highest level because they honor the position in which they have been blessed to have. And so my standpoint in the way that I operate is after coming off of life support, I'm thankful for everything that I'm allowed to be able to do. And I'm blessed to be in a specific uh, position of leadership in the educational field and in the speaking realm. And I'm just thankful. And I look at it as service. And as leaders, I believe we need to look at our positions as not just authority, but also servitude. Meaning the higher you go in the platform, the status of the ladder of whatever realm, the lower we humble ourselves with humility so that we understand that we're not leading because we all of that and we so much better than anyone else. No, we're just blessed to have the ability to be in that position, and we're called to serve at a deeper level. Yes, you may go higher on the ranking, but we go lower in the service, in the humility rather. We humble ourselves, and then people respect, and they can see the humility. It can't be faked. It has to be organic. We're thankful to serve, even if it's tough on the tough days. When you show up and all hell is breaking loose in the classroom or whatever, the office or whatever situation you're dealing with, you keep your eyes on the prize and you understand that you were built for this. Um, as I reflect on what I've gone through, I understand that God allowed me to survive for such a time as this. So I remind myself and stay at a level of humility because if it had not been for his precious grace and mercy, it could have went a much different way. Yeah, so it's a sobering reminder when the doctors shared with me that not many people make it off of the ventilator. That's a very crucial and very significant, serious scenario to be in. And it always causes me to pause and just be so thankful and have an attitude of gratitude. But I would encourage you as a listener or those watching that not many people survive what you have survived. We all, again, have a 100% survival rate of everything that we've gone through. And many of you have survived a lot of things that others have not made it through. And so you should be thankful and really appreciate the value of life and believe in yourself and be proud of the scars, to say to a certain extent, because again, the scars give you the authority. And so my question for you, as I encourage myself, is what part of your history do you think disqualifies you? Because that is the exact part that God wants to use to help set someone else free. What qualifies you to be able to encourage another? What is your history? And so the scars that you encounter in this life give you the authority to move forward. So I just challenge you to just have a transparent moment with your realm of influence, your team that you lead, or your family. Share with them not only the victories, but also what we thought were defeats, but they're really not defeats. You don't really lose. In life, you either win or you learn. So even though you may feel like you've lost that battle, but there's some things that you can learn from so you can pick yourself up off of the mat and keep moving forward with a restored voice. And that's what I'm here to encourage and just to be a reflection that I am a restored voice, to come off of life support when it wasn't really believed that I would be able to sing again. I was really worried about whether I was going to even be able to talk because my vocal cords were stripped, and it was really a very serious scenario. But to God be the glory. I'm able to sing again, and I'm able to be restored and lead with a restored voice. So I encourage you to sing again. Whatever your situation is, wherever you find yourself at this moment, between the notes of victory, or if you find yourself in the valley, he is our shepherd. He's the God of the hills and the valleys. And again, we all chase those high notes, the winds that get the praise. But we find our true identity in the quiet, lonely days. So I invite you just to reflect and assess your victories and your defeats, but there's always an ability to encourage, an opportunity to encourage someone else as you encourage yourself. So once again, I'm Craig Pratt. I'm honored, and I encourage you to assess and be the authority of your scars to someone else so that you can be encouragement. And I'll see you next time in Between the Notes.